I was born in the state of North Carolina, the county of Carteret County, in 1899 in a log cabin, dirt floor.
Julian Taylor and his family moved to Cortez a year later. He's one of the oldest Cortesians still around, along with Ruth Culbreth and my cousin Tootle.
Why did your daddy come down? Why did y'all move?
Well, he had been, previous to that, he came down and he was very interested in commercial fishing to Punta Gorda. And then after him and Mother was married, why, then they decided to move to Florida, and he picked this spot here at Cortez through some friends and others that knew about this.
Well, all of the old settlers came from Carteret County.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just, well, practically every one of them.
Yeah.
If not in Carteret County itself, it was in that vicinity.
And you know, there's another funny thing about the most of the people in Carteret County was related, a distant or close related of that whole county almost. The Fulfords had sifted down one time that we were related to Captain Billy.
Oh, we still are.
Still are, in fact.
Yeah.
If we can't find anybody else to marry, we marry our kin, don't we?
Yeah, at one time, I think the whole town of Cortez was actually related, you know.
Happy. We were a happy family.
Oh, yeah, everybody
There was 9 children, but we were happy.
Very congenial people.
We didn't know any better than not to be happy. We were poor. We didn't know we were poor.
Well, we had never had anything.
No,
so
we didn't know we were poor. We were happy. We had a good life.
And we didn't have anything, any luxuries of life, but we did eat good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing. I never, back during the Depression years when times were so hard for people, especially in the cities, that's one thing I remember, that we always had plenty to eat because it was abundant here. And you could, all kinds of seafood, and I never remember being hungry.
I don't either.
Well, let's talk about the tough times, Susie. You talked about the Depression, the 21 storm. What were the tough parts about living here, and how did people make it through the hard times?
Well, during that Depression, that Cortez, Florida, this Ripley's, believe it or not, it was in the paper, came out, Ripley's, believe it or not, that Cortez, Florida was the only town in the United States was self-sufficient.
Didn't get any federal money?
No, no federal aid at all. They were self-sufficient.
We were more concerned for each other's welfare, and we shared what we had, and if a person was sick, well, it was just your responsibility to go and help take care of them, sit up with them at night, the sick and the dead.
The longtime Cortez residents, like Julian, Ruth, and Tootle, marked time around a handful of events, like the Depression and the hurricane of 1921.
Oh, yeah, that 21 storm, yeah. That was fierce. See, we didn't have no communication. We didn't know that thing was coming until it was on us, right on top of us. And then it was just too late almost to get out of here.
How bad was it really, Dale?
It just took all the waterfront off of Cortez, all the buildings and everything. There wasn't a building left, nothing but the piling that the buildings was rested on, that was built out over the water, you know. The buildings was gone. There was a big store down there. You know, they called it the Bratton store, that big store.
Bratton's Dock. Okay.
Yeah, Bratton's Dock. There was a grocery store, you know, Joe Guthrie had a store in there. And there was a warehouse, and there was some fish boxes or houses in there, too, on the same dock. And it was the only dock that was around you could drive a car out on.
And it was
and
gone.
it just took it completely off, gone.
The Cortez waterfront had been rebuilt by 1930, the year Wyman Coursey and his family moved to town. Like most people then, the Courseys didn't have much money.
But had it not been for the people of Cortez, I don't think we'd ever made it. They fed us. A fish boat come by, Jewel Moore would come by, pull in close to our shoreline and throw fish ashore, and we'd go out like ducks and pick them up out of the water, get these fish and bring them up, and we'd cook and eat them. And whenever they got into trouble with the law or anything, Coast Guard problems or whatever, they came straight to my dad. He did the legal work for them and never got a cent for it, never asked for a cent. But we traded. In other words, my dad traded legal work for fish and seafoods and whatever. And what we didn't get ourselves was given to us by them. And that's the way people lived back then. It was all, you do something for me and I'll do something for you. I mean, there was no money involved. That's how we all survived and got along.
Through the early 1900s, the Depression years, and World War II, life here remained pretty much the same. There was nothing in the winds off Sarasota Bay to foretell the post-war boom when Florida's Gulf Coast began attracting new residents by the thousands. So over the next 35 to 40 years, the newcomers settled on Florida's west coast and got permits from the county and built on the waterfront. And for the most part, the local fishermen never raised an angry voice.
They'd say, yeah, we'll be there, and you'd go in there. I'd ask the boys if they could show up at a county meeting. They'd say, well, I got to go fishing. You know, it was more important, and probably it was to them right then. But then again, in the long run, it's going to be more important the other way around. They should have been there and opposed a lot of this stuff. That's why they're not allowed to go into these canals now. They run them out of the canals of all these developments where they put these fingers in and have waterfront property for every house. Well, that has hurt the fishermen tremendously, because the fish go on up in these canals and they're not allowed in there. They get put in jail if they go up in there to try to catch it. And it makes it hard on them trying to make a living. So actually what we did was, you might say, sit back and let these fingers and canals be dug and change the entire waterfront of this peninsula that we're on here. I mean, over the history, the waters and bays are for everybody. But it's not so anymore. Whenever a city or a certain area, like Braden Beach and Longboat Key, they say, we don't want you in here. And they tell them certain areas and they can't go in. Well, that's the main place where our local fishermen have made their livings back through history, is in these inland waters around the swampy areas and islands and what have you. Well, every time they build put in a new development and take it over and put up seawalls and build fingers in there and then say, now you guys stay away. So what they've done is took away their source of living.
What do you think it would take to save Cortez?
I think, I really don't know the answer to that. I do feel that what's going on now and what has been done in the last 2 or 3 years since this marina argument came up, I think it's got the attention of the people, and the only thing it's going to save them, if that does, is for them to stick together and fight on every front when it comes up. If you're going to win a battle, you're going to have to fight every chance, and every time a fight breaks out. You can't fight one round and sit through the next, you're going to lose the damn fight. And if they will band together and stay together and do what they believe in, they might be able to control it and hold it like it is now.